Hello, hello.
Hi, sir.
Hello. Hello, Martin. How are you?
Very well. How are you guys? You good?
Yeah, we are also fine. So, once again, Martin, we are extremely grateful to you for doing Instagram Live with us. And I guess everyone is here. So, what are we waiting for? Let's just get into the session. So,
Okay.
my first question to you is tell us a bit about you. Where are you from and what's your profession?
Well, I'm originally from the north of England, a region called Yorkshire, and been all over the place really. Lived in Switzerland, lived in London, and I left London in early 2018 to live a mindful life in Bali, which is where I live now.
Cool. Thank you so much for introducing yourself. We would also love to know your journey so far.
How long have we got? My journey so far. Well, I guess if I were to try to make it short for you, I grew up in I guess a middle class family in the north of England, but my mother was afflicted with alcoholism, unfortunately. So we had a bit of a tough time growing up. Not the most functional family background, and it certainly didn't help from a concentration perspective when it came to schooling. So I didn't go to university. I got into the marketing industry long time ago, and apart from a few other ventures here and there, I've been a professional marketer for over 25 years. Um, I I guess I didn't realize for such a long time that I was actually a high functioning alcoholic and eventually a cocaine addict as well. So I spent a great deal of my adult life causing myself and the people around me an awful lot of heartache, a lot of self sabotaging, a lot of self destruction, and a lot of self suffering. And it was a strange arrangement with hindsight because unlike other alcoholics and addicts who many of which I've met since, I managed to function. So, and in that sort of environment, it's quite unusual because you are running a business. I was running a business, running several businesses through that period of time, successful businesses, and on the face of it, to many people around me, I was very happy, and I guess the life and soul of the party. But in real life, I wasn't happy at all, and I was suffering from depression and addiction, and which eventually wound up becoming a journey of self-harm, and then I got to this stage where I came very close to committing suicide with a loaded shotgun in my mouth. Actually, my beagle, my dog, saved my life, I guess you could say. She came in at the right time and sort of gave me this look like dogs do. Don't do that. And I think that was probably, in chronological terms, that was very much the beginning of a very long journey of unlearning and healing. So from there, I spent about 18 months doing therapy, meeting with a psychologist, and but then the real work began when I quit drinking altogether. I've been clean and sober now for almost 4 years, and having moved to Bali, I've had some phenomenal experiences, having done the real work, the only work worth doing, in my opinion, and that is to become fully self-aware and to unlearn, and to go through a huge and incredibly painful but incredibly inspiring and beautiful healing journey, for which I will always be eternally grateful to myself for. but also to those that have helped me along the journey. It's been amazing. That's almost 46 years for you in 5 minutes. How was that, Abhishek?
That was, you really did very well. I think everything explained in very short. Yeah. We would love to know more about you in the further question.
Carry on.
And at the
Carry on.
And at the same time, it was very inspiring as well. So my next question to you is that, Martin, these days you are working on your podcast, How to Die Happy with Chris Sarkis. So can you give us some details about it as well?
I can. It's actually, I'm very, very excited about this. So having worked in the marketing industry for over 25 years and having this sort of finite realization that I was having my third nervous breakdown in London, I quit. I closed down my business, and I moved to Bali, and I spent a good 18 months not doing any marketing stuff. I started to write a couple of screenplays, so I wrote a couple of movies. I decided to completely and utterly reinvent myself, essentially. So I wrote a couple of movies, and a comedy screenplay with a buddy of mine, a writing partner called Ryan Loftus. And then I started to write a book, and I'm writing a book at the moment, which is kind of a self-help book, but more, I guess it's peppered with my life experience and my healing journey experience, but it's filled with utilities, and it's what inspired me to get Chris to join me in this crazy expedition to create a podcast called How to Die Happy. And essentially, How to Die Happy is an observation of our pursuit of happiness and what we believe happiness is. And of course, we all have very different ideas about that. I used to have a very different idea of what happiness was. I now have a contrasting perspective. So our pursuit of happiness, our inherent and irrational fear of death, and I say irrational because it's part of life, right? And impermanence is a universal constant. Yet, as a species, we, in the main, not all parts of the world, but in the main, we have a real bizarre relationship with death. And then it's everything in between, and it's the thread of the concept is that having done many studies, they discovered that there are around 10 deathbed regrets. So this is people very close to death in hospices or hospitals, and they are interviewed, and they discuss what it is that they regret about their lives and about their impending deaths. And it's kind of what you would expect. It's things like, I wish I'd said I love you more. I wish I'd spent more time with family and not work. I wish I'd not held grudges. I wish I'd been a better person in conflict. I wish I'd been able to express myself better. I wish I'd had the courage to live my dreams. I wish I'd had the courage to be more authentic about who I was and how I felt about the world. And it goes on. And I think, well, I would imagine people possibly listening to the live might be able to relate. Although I understand we've got a slightly younger audience, so I would imagine a lot of the people listening aren't really all that fussed about dying just yet. Hopefully not. Anyway, so yeah, we've created a podcast, and it's the first episode will go live on the 20th of September. We have a whole range of guests confirmed, from international best-selling author Carl Honoré to William Rees, formerly of Mystery Jets. He's a solo artist. Gosh, who else do we have? Rebecca Jacks, a suicide survivor who is now a loss and grief counsellor. Lots. Can't think right now, but so we've got loads of people who have leapt. Well, after I've invited them, obviously, into help us do this. And ultimately, the whole point of the podcast is to, on a weekly basis, share stories and more importantly, utilities for people to consider ways in which they might be able to learn the art of living and ultimately dying well. That's it.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing about the podcast. I have noted the day 28 September, if I'm not wrong, and we really look forward to hearing the first episode of that podcast. Yeah.
Actually, Abhishek, I
Um,
think it's the 30th of September. My bad. September 30, I think, is the first
okay.
date. And we'll be on Spotify and Apple and all of that sort of stuff. So yeah, of course, if anybody's interested, please do just follow my my Instagram, and I will be sharing more information about it. But I'm very excited about it.
Perfect. 30th September on Spotify. So, Martin, you talk about topics like mental health, grief, and addiction in your blogs. Why do you think it is important to educate society on such topics, and what can be done to educate them?
Why is it important? I suppose I feel as though we have reached kind of an impasse in societal terms, where on the one hand you have a rising wave of fortunately conscious people who, thanks to some wonderful, inspiring authors and actors and other people's and healers who are doing such a wonderful job to share their knowledge with the world. We have this rising wave of conscious people who are suddenly spending more time concerning themselves with what they eat, what they watch, what they listen to, how they move, where they move, with whom they move, the environment they are in. And a lot of people are getting wise to how easy it is for us to pollute our minds as a result of polluting our bodies, minds, and effectively our spirits. So you have all of these fortunate people on the one hand that I've just mentioned, but then there are a great swathe of people who, for whatever reason, don't have access to that information and are living in fear or living in a state of denial. And I say this without judgment, because you must understand I cannot possibly judge another since I am them and I have been them, or I will be them in the future. So there is an opportunity and a crisis all in one, where society, in my view, is broken. And you don't have to take my word for it. You only have to take the statistics on board that show exponential rises in mental health issues, mental illness, depression, and sadly in suicide. In fact, tomorrow is World Suicide Prevention Day, of which I would like to pay a little special attention to and invite people to check it out and check out the resources available online if you just search for World Suicide Prevention Day. But we now have, I think, 1 in every 100 people on the planet committing suicide, 1 every 40 seconds or something shocking like that. The more terrifying fact for me is actually the huge rise in 15 to 19-year-olds taking their own lives. So, you know, I've been there, and I came this close to ending my life, and I every day I express gratitude because I didn't do it. And I remember how utterly hopeless I was, and I remember how I felt I couldn't talk to anybody about it. I remember the feelings of shame, the self-abuse, the loathsome emotions that came up, and I also remember being crippled by this. You know, depression is physically crippling as well as emotionally and mentally. So I was there, and for whatever reason, you know, thank God, I got out of it. I stopped myself, and and I went from a place where I thought there was no future for me, and I thought the world was a better place without me in it, because of all of the heartache I'd caused and the destruction I'd caused in my own co-created, drama-addicted life of self-suffering. I hurt many people, many of which I've reached out to, and many of which have received my apology, many of which have completely ignored my apologies, which is obviously also fine, and because everything's perfect in that regard. But so with all of that in mind, it just became painfully obvious to me that as a professional communicator and a writer who has been through that journey and who has survived it, and who has now, I'm not a millionaire, I don't have a boat or an Aston Martin or any of that stuff, but what I do have is a wonderful partner whom I love and loves me back. I have two wonderful puppies. We live in a lovely little house by the sea in Bali. I'm surrounded by amazing human beings, all of which are conscious. Bali is just one of those islands that attracts people on an awareness journey. And so every day I'm just super grateful that I didn't kill myself, and that now here I am, randomly having another strange day when I'm talking to you guys in India on the internet. Hello, Instagram. This is my first Instagram live, by the way, so I hope it's not too bad. And about to launch a podcast and write a book and finish a book. And honestly, if that book only helps one person, then it was worth writing. And I feel exactly the same about the podcast and about the articles that I write on the Elephant Journal. I don't want people to, or rather I'm not trying to force my will or my experience on others in order to essentially say, don't do this, save yourself from this, protect yourself from these mistakes, because I know all too well that that's not how we operate as humans. Most of the time we need to learn our own mistakes. However, if there is a way for me to at least plant some seeds to help people to maybe take the edge off those harder lessons and hopefully not ever get to the point where they are 30 seconds from suicide, then I'm doing the right thing for the rest of my life. And this is what I'm dedicating the rest of my life to, service to others. That was a long answer to your short question.
No, actually it gave us lots of insight in the way you share your story with it. So I think that our audience got to know, and thank you for shedding light on the topic. So my next question to you is that how can such incidents like mental health, mental disorders, or alcoholism can mold it into meaningful learning in life?
I'm sorry, I heard most of what you said, but your audio's gone quite quiet.
Yeah, even from the...
Hello,
yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Not very well.
It's
Can you
still...
hear?
No, it's still there.
You've gone very quiet, which wouldn't be a problem were I not partially deaf.
Okay, Vibha, try doing that. Till then, I can repeat the question for you, sir. So the question
Sure.
is, how can such experiences like mental health disorder or addiction be molded into positive learning in our lives?
That's a great question, and there are multiple answers to it. I think the important thing for anyone in my position to be mindful of is that whilst I wish to share my stories in order to help others, at the same time I have to be mindful that we are all very different, and We are all different ages, different genders, different countries, different belief systems. We are all very different times and parts of our path, of our journey. But I think so far my experience of talking about these things and writing about them is that I have a unique perspective. Not unique, I'm not special in as much as I've had these problems and felt these feelings, because, well, most of us have in some way, shape or form. The uniqueness, I think, comes from being able to talk about it with genuine experience, having felt that pain. But something happened to me in this journey over the last couple of years where I'm not a religious person. There's a term which is omnism. I don't know if anybody in the audience knows what omnism is, but essentially omnism recognizes that there is truth in all religions, but not one religion has all truth. Fundamentally, I don't believe there is one singular truth for anything. We all have our own truth, and all of our truths are valid. But during this period of the last couple of years, I had an experience, I guess you could call it a near-death experience, where I had some very clear realizations, not intellectual, but actual realizations about certain laws of the universe, if you like. So essentially, it turned out I was learning about some of the Buddhist principles. I didn't know it at the time, but in Buddhism, there are three marks of existence: anicca, dukkha, and anatta. Anicca is impermanence, dukkha is suffering, and anatta is no self. The acceptance that you are not self, that you are part of a unity consciousness, I guess, in a way. In learning about dukkha, suffering, I realized that the teachings just completely related to everything I'd been experiencing. I suffered due to my attachment of things, of outcomes, of a house, of a job, of a car, of a wife, of a dog. We are attached to our bodies. We are attached to everything. I mean, and it's perfectly normal in a world of form, right? But the issue of suffering then becomes more prevalent the more attached we are to form, and the less mindful we are of our inner power, our inner strength, and also our strength as a community. So I guess what you would call metaphysics, that which we cannot see nor hear, certainly has been proven to exist. For example, the unified field of energy around us. The Jedi would call it the Force, for you Star Wars fans. So I'm going slightly off-piste to answer your question, but having had the experiences I've had, having had a realization that an opportunity to share experience, certainly the utilities that I've learned to live a happier life and to live in peace, it was quite obvious I needed to share it. And one of the most obvious and fundamental practices would be meditation. But then it goes on. I practice yoga, I practice breath work, I practice qigong. I also eat a plant-based diet. I don't consume alcohol. I don't smoke. I don't take synthetic narcotics. And I get 8 to 10 hours sleep a night. And all of that has made me a significantly happier person.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that. I would move to my next question, which is, do you think success and failures are equally important, and what is your take on this?
Do I think successes and failures are equally important? Yes, but I would also caution anyone when considering successes and failures, and I would ask you to really consider what is success and what is failure. Success was something I chased for a long, long time, and I earned a lot of money, and I spent a lot of money, and I bought the fast cars and watches, and had nice things, nice houses, and went out to nice places, and went on nice holidays, and I thought that was success. And later, fast forward to 2018, when I sold or given away everything I owned, and traveled to Bali with 2 bags, I realized that all of those things were worth nothing. So be mindful of what success is, would be my first point. The second is failure. A lot of people view failure negatively. I don't. How would I explain this? I guess a mistake's only a mistake if you learn nothing from it. And I don't believe you can have a fulfilling life without failure. And actually, I think certainly my life has been an absolute roller coaster of success and failure. And the only question is, if you do fail, how do you deal with that? And do you judge yourself for it? Do you blame the world? Do you abrogate all responsibility? Or instead of saying, why is this happening to me? Do you say, what is this teaching me? And that would be a fundamental lesson that I have followed for a long time now. And it's changed my whole perspective on being alive, because now I see failure as lessons. I see events as lessons. Whether or not they are negative or positive, they are still lessons. They are gifts. And in that regard, failure is a gift. And you know what, Abhishek? With all of that in mind, one might say that anyone who comes to these sort of realizations is successful. Just depends how you judge success. But right now, where I'm sitting, having lived the life I've had, and I have had an incredibly colourful time, I would say being happy, healthy, and grateful is the best kind of success there is in the world.
Absolutely, and that was so meaningful answer, I think. Just one thing, sir. I think sometime I was able to miss you because there was some technical thing happening. So
Okay.
yeah, but now it is everything is clear. I think yeah. Vibha, are you there? I can see you. Yeah.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Hello.
Hello.
Yes,
Yeah.
we
Now
can.
you.
Welcome back.
We can
Okay,
hear you.
sorry, there were some issues with my fiber, but that's totally fine. So my next question to you is, and first of all, thank you for answering that. And I totally believe in you that, it's very important to live a more happy and healthy life rather than going towards success. So thank you for sending that message out. My next question to you is, so failure is one of the main triggers for the suicide, and these days, numbers are increasing. So my question to you is, why our suicide rates are increasing day by day, and what can we do to prevent them?
That's a really good question. I think there are a number of causes for suicide now, as there always have been. But there are some larger, more fundamental shifts in the world, in global society. So, for example, the planet's belief in a god or an omnipresence is in decline. So the moment somebody ceases to believe rather in a god, then they are more likely to, or rather less likely to believe in life after death. And as a result of that, I think there has been a wave of hopelessness. And if you attach that to, well, what I can only define as a sick, decaying societal model, hopelessness and fear are two huge drivers for people who commit suicide. Sadly, money is a huge part of people taking their lives. And this is primarily because people get to the situation where they feel hopeless, they haven't got money, or they're in debt. I mean, there's been some terrible stories. People in debt killing themselves simply because they're in debt, either because they can't see their way out of it, or because they are ashamed. They kept the debt secret. They're ashamed of how it will affect, how their family or friends or business partners or other people around them will perceive them. So there are numerous reasons why people are committing suicide, but in my own opinion, I think it's because we have a societal model which is broken, and we are moving away from one another in so many ways that we're losing sense of community. And it's kind of ironic because, of course, we have technology like this, so I can connect from Bali with you guys in India right now, real time. And obviously we have people from India and I don't know where else, all over the world, I don't know. So we have this connection at a touch, yet we're on the flip side, we're losing sense of community for the people right next door to us, the people in our own houses. And unfortunately, because we've this sick society that rolls on through generations, poisoned by alcohol, poisoned by drugs, poisoned by bad foods, poisoned by bad content on television and the internet, we have generation upon generation of trauma being created. And you know, if you are emotionally or physically injured in the first 8 years of your life, in the early childhood development years, you are entirely likely to develop problems, psychological problems that could be with you for the rest of your life. And depression is one of those things that just snowballs. So in actual fact, alcoholism, for example, alcoholism is a symptom. It's not a cause of your behavior. You know, if I drink 10 bottles of wine, it's because I'm trying to get drunk to blank out my problems, to distract myself, because the idea of actually taking a traumatic memory and sitting with it is an impossible concept, as opposed to drinking a bottle of wine or snorting a gram of cocaine. So I'm not sure I've answered your question there, but there are a lot of problems, and it sounds pretty miserable, but I think on the flip side of that, we have this wonderful wave of rising consciousness across the planet. Even in the toughest times, all of this nonsense that's been happening around the world for the last 18 months, even though the media are absolutely poisoning everybody's minds and ears with, how do I say this, sensationalist coverage of a pandemic. Fear is rife with everyone. At the same time, we have a beautiful rising wave of people who are seeing this as the ultimate challenge, and they are doing the inner work, and they are saying, you know what, I know everything that's happening is bad, and I know I've got stuff to deal with, and I know I had a terrible life, I know I've been abused, or you know, whatever that thing is, but they're reaching out and they're saying to people, look, please, I need help. Just help me. Not in a charitable way, you know, help me. Just be there for me. Hold space for me. And I perhaps it's because I'm in that crowd, but I've met so many beautiful souls in the last couple of years who are they have their arms wide open for people who are struggling with depression, and wow, they have open hearts for anybody who's considering taking their own lives. And it's, you know, as I said to you before, I don't judge anybody for their actions. But it's such a needless thing for people to take their own lives. And I hope as a society that we really grasp this, that it can't happen. You know, we must create communities, start locally and then pan it out. And it's not about government. Governments are not very good, frankly. None of the governments are doing a phenomenal job. It's about the people, we the people, and it's about us looking out for each other and recognizing that we are connected. You're my sister, you're my brother, I'm your brother. You know, we are united. And we've got to stop looking to governments. These people, with the greatest respect, no judgment, aren't very good at their jobs and shouldn't really be doing what they're doing. So where it starts is here, and then it moves out to there, and it moves out to there, and then suddenly there's three of us watching each other's back, and so on and so forth. So, you know, it's a bit of a cliche, but be the change you want to see in the world. So if you can help yourself, and you do have to help yourself, there's no savior, there's no Messiah. Sorry to break it to my fellow Christians, but you know, it's not going to happen the way you think it's going to happen. The Christ consciousness will rise, but it won't be in one body, it will be in a community. And if you take the whole Jesus thing out of it for a moment, it'll just be love. Anyway, I went off piece again. Apologies.
No. So first of all, thank you for telling us the importance of connection, and I totally agree with you that how technology is kind of ruining our life. So thank you for shedding light on it. So now it's time for some questions from audience. So if anyone has any questions, so they can just type in the question section. Till then, there is a question from PSD Chemistry. So he or she is asking that how was the first few months of healing was, and how were you dealing with all the pressure?
Great question. I actually posted something on Instagram yesterday. I think I said 3 things I've learned about healing, or 3 things I know about healing. One was there's no silver bullet. 2, none of us are the same. We all have a different path and a different pace. And 3, you have to want it. And a lot of people, we live in an age where there's a hack for everything, right? You know, we have body hacking, we have growth hacking, we have shortcuts. And unfortunately, thanks to these things, we have very short attention spans and very little patience. And as a result of all of these wonderful technological advances where we can just get something like that, sadly, a lot of people think that healing is the same process. And I'm here to tell you it's not. However, do not despair. You know, I spent 42 years of my life, maybe 43 years of my life, making a bit of a mess. And then it just took me, I would say, 4 to 5 years to unlearn and to heal. Now, listen, it's not over. It's never over. That's the thing, you know. Actually, part of the healing journey is realizing we're always learning. We never stop. We're always learners, and we're all learners, and we're all teachers to one another. It doesn't matter where we are on the path. But I would say I've done a significant amount of healing. So, but we're all different. So it took me 5 years. Some people would say, 5 years, forget it. I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing. I would say, honestly, rethink that. 5 years versus 42 years. It's all been worth it, because what's happened to me anyway in my story is I died and I'm back, version 2.0, and age 46 in November. I've got like a whole new life ahead of me, and I could not be more amazed and bemused and excited, and above all grateful for it. So my Yeah, sorry, it's a long answer to your question, whoever it was who asked, but it's a journey. It's not. There's no silver bullet, but do it. And the younger you are, wow. I mean, seriously, start now, and actually, then you're going to bypass a lot of the the pain and suffering I went through. But actually, it was the Buddha who said, "Pain is inevitable, suffering is optional." And if you think about that, it's a wonderful, wonderful concept. The pain is going to happen to us. It's samsara. It's life. The realm of duality we live in comes with a pile of suffering, but in that suffering is lessons. And it's up to us when we stop suffering. So when we take the lesson on board and we move on, and the suffering stops. So it's totally up to you. But to anybody who's considering a healing journey, for me, it's a no-brainer. Begin.
Thank you for answering that, and I hope that PhD chemist got his answer. And he is again asking that how can we help a friend or family who is suffering from depression?
Okay, great question. Well, the first thing to try to do, and this is very, very difficult when it's a friend or family, is to not judge. One of the reasons why people suffering from mental illness or depression, and I at this stage I must say, listen, I'm not a trained psychologist, I'm not a psychiatrist. I just had a few mental health issues, and I'm still alive. So that's where I'm coming from my perspective. People who are suffering from mental health issues and depression, more often than not, either feel ashamed to talk about it, or they feel like they would be burdening their friends or family. Certainly that's how I felt. I didn't want to tell anybody about it, because actually more often than not, I was the class clown. I was the jester. So when people saw me, I was the one cheering them up and entertaining them. And as a result, I just never felt like I could tell anybody about my problems. And I was really, really wrong. And so this is the point. The point is really to try to hold space for them. And you can only really do that by saying, look, I'm not judging you, and I'm certainly not criticizing you, but I'm worried about you. I see that I think there's something going on with you. And if you want to talk about it, I will listen. 2 of these, 1 of these. Use them in proportion, as one of my old mentors used to say. And I think if you can get someone to a position where they feel as though they can trust you, and that you will hold space for them, and you will listen without judgment, not even an opinion, just let them offload, then that's always a good start. And then, of course, on top of that, if these people aren't going to interact with you, then there are lots and lots of wonderful mental health organizations. So you can always try to encourage them to contact mental health organizations. And of course, it goes without saying, if you know someone who you are genuinely fearful are going to hurt themselves or others, then you must act. You must act. I don't know about anybody listening, but I had a friend who killed himself, and I didn't know. I didn't know he was feeling that way. But like many people who have survived suicide, they do find themselves feeling terribly guilty because they didn't do anything. We can't do that. We shouldn't do that. That's a fundamental point. It's not our fault if somebody takes their lives. It really isn't. And we should not judge ourselves or beat ourselves up for that. Ultimately, it's their choice. But on the flip side of that, if there's an opportunity for us to just encourage them, just to stop for 1 second and have that word, and just lend them 2 of these, and hold space for them. That's where I would start.
Thank you for answering that, and it not only helped him, but it also helped us to know some simple ways by which we can help our loved ones. So thank you for that. So yeah, now we can move on. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, Vibha, for taking some questions from the audience. Let's come back to the conversation. So sometimes when we fail, we miss out on identifying learnings from it and taking it positively. What do you think can we do to bounce back positively in our life?
Excuse me. Bounce back positively from what? Sorry, Abhishek, I lost you there.
Okay, I'll repeat it. Sometimes when we fail, we miss out on identifying the learnings from it and taking it positively. What do you think can one do to bounce back positively in their lives?
I think, in actual fact, probably partially my response will also answer, I think it was Susmita's question that I can see on the screen. And she says, what is the one ritual you practice each day or night to sleep peacefully? For me, the practice of meditation has become everything. And I fundamentally believe that meditation is something that we should all do on a daily basis, even more than once. I believe that meditation is the key, the absolute key to mindfulness. And so when something happens to us, what we have to try to do is remember that it's the mind, the ego, that responds to that event. And unfortunately, ego's not really all that good at responding. So when something happens to us that, as we perceive, is bad or negative, ego tends to jump right in, and it's usually in fight or flight mode. It's in defense mode. It's patronizing, or it's petulant. What we need to learn to do, and certainly it took me a long time, because anybody watching this who knew the old version of me would know that I was ego. I was all ego. But through meditation, we can learn to give consciousness, our consciousness, space to breathe. So ultimately, I call my body an earth rover, because it's driving around Earth School learning stuff. And the reason why I call it an earth rover is because I don't believe I am my mind. I don't believe my brain is in charge of me. I believe my brain's an antenna for a different kind of energy. I believe that my consciousness is the passenger inside my body. And I guess the best example, the best way to elaborate on that would be to say, who is the voice listening to the voice in your head? You just think about that for a moment, because actually, if you take a deep breath in and a deep breath out and just sit with no breath with you for a couple of seconds, you will observe yourself observing yourself. That is consciousness watching ego. So long answer to your question, but the more practice you do to expand your consciousness, the more you can bounce back. It's as simple as that. And there are lots of ways to do it. Ultimately, it's one of the things you very quickly realize is the futility and the impermanence of the event. I talked about anicca earlier on. The one universal constant is inconstant. It's anicca. Nothing in this universe stays the same. Even this iPhone, it won't stay the same. It will corrode. It'll rot. These bodies, right? So when we realize that everything, every physical thing and every mental state is impermanent, you tend to frame a different perspective, or hopefully through practice you can. So that, I think, hopefully answers the question about sleeping peaceful, because I meditate every night. I listen to isochronic tunes. I don't know if you know what isochronics are, but it's sound healing frequencies. So it's music set at different frequencies to trigger different brain waves. So 432 hertz, for example, is a wonderful sleep state isochronic, which will help you pop right off and have some wonderful dreams. So that's one way to bounce back. Of course, the other ways are to keep your body clean so you're not emotionally charged. Move, do exercise, do yoga, do qigong, do anything before you allow your monkey mind, the ego, the emotions, to respond to that event. And when it responds, it comes crashing down and it makes you feel a little bit miserable, and it might well upset a few people around you. So that's how I bounce back.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. It feels like it's quite really relevant to my life as well. So thank you so much for sharing that, and thank you, Sushmita Di, for asking that question. I have last question of the day for you. Like, what would you like to share? Like, is there any message that you would like to share with the viewers that we have right now?
Yeah, I think probably the message I'd love to share for the pencilbricks audience, especially. And by the way, what you guys are doing is beautiful. It's a lovely, lovely, amazing thing, and I'm grateful. I'm grateful you're on the planet doing what you're doing, and I'm grateful to your organisation. And like I said earlier on about my own endeavours, if it only helps one person, it's worth doing it. And if we had more people doing what you're doing, then we'd have some wonderful unity consciousness vibes. And we do have a lot of people doing this. So I guess I would say to anybody who's listening that, especially the younger folks, don't worry about making the wrong decisions in anything, in any aspect of your life, because impermanence, remember, it's never all going to stay the same. So you might make a choice today, and then 3 months down the line, that choice might not be right for you anymore. It might not serve you. Well, that's okay. Don't beat yourself up about it. Just make another choice and change the story. And the same goes for making a major decision that actually takes you 20 years to undo. Don't beat yourself up. Remember, it's impermanent. And remember, you can always change. The one amazing lesson I've had over the last couple of years in my twisting my tail has been that you can always teach an old dog new tricks, and you can always change your own story, because we are the authors, the directors, and the main actor in our own story. And in that regard, we can change it anytime we like. So that'd be my piece of advice. Just don't beat yourself up. Don't judge yourself. Love yourself, and just remember it's a journey and enjoy it. Because actually, it's not. We spend too much time as a society focusing on the destination, and not enough time being grateful for the journey.
Rightly said. And that was so meaningful advice. Thank you for sharing that. I'm on the very last stage where I want to share that I feel it was very meaningful conversation that we had, and your experiences really helped get answers to so many questions today. And it was a very meaningful and inspiring conversation that we had with you. And I really hope that everyone is taking a lot of learnings and takeaway today. I want to thank you, Martin, for joining us today, taking your time, and we are extremely grateful for you to join us.
Likewise, thank you
also
guys.
want
I
to
really
take this.
appreciate it.
Yeah. I also want to take this moment to thank you, our viewers, for joining us and being such engaging audience today and engaging with us. With that, I just want to share that if you're liking our content and if you're liking our content and lives, do check out the link in the bio, do support us and follow us. Do check out the podcast and follow Martin to know about it more. And finally, do your bit for the cause today. And yeah, we are coming
Yes.
back next Thursday, 6 p.m. again with a new guest, new experiences like Martin. And yeah, thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much, Martin, for joining.
Thank you both. Namaste. Thank you so much.
Namaste.
Yeah. Before ending it, just reading one comment from the unhindered Lacuna. I don't know I'm pronouncing it right or wrong. The reason why I come here is to listen and to meet myself, and I am never disappointed. Thank you for this space. So thank you for joining, and we are extremely grateful and we are very happy that you are enjoying this space. So thank you for watching. Thank you. Namaste. Bye bye.
Namaste. Thank you, guys. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.